Nicole's got on now, so I think we're ready to start, Jessica.
Yes. So good morning, everybody. Thank you for joining us. We're very excited. This is the first of many economic development related virtual training sessions that we have scheduled for this upcoming year with Shelley. And so before we get started, I'm just going to take a minute and read a land acknowledgement. So as we gather here today, we acknowledge that we are on Treaty 6 territory and homeland of the Métis. We pay our respect to the First Nations and Métis ancestors of this place and reaffirm our relationship with one another. So again, thank you very much. And at the very end of this session, there will be a survey that pops up right in Zoom, and we sure would appreciate your feedback in just a few minutes filling that out.
Good morning. I'm Jenny Glessman with the Sage Hill Community Futures Office. And on behalf of the Sage Hill office, and then Lisa at the Northwest Community Futures Office out of North Battleford, we're excited to be bringing this economic development series to Zoom and to our region and to the regions. It's a hot topic. I think all of our communities are busily trying to do things in their community, and lots of us not sure if we're doing it right. We probably are, but it's nice to have that, little bit of help. The community futures offices, we do loans, advice, and support. Most people know us as for small business, but we also do lots of stuff for nonprofits, community organizations, whether it be training. We can help with strat planning, things like that, and also bringing sessions like this. So we're excited to have two people joining us today. We have Shelley and we have Nicole. And so we'll start maybe with Shelley giving us a little introduction of yourself, and then we'll go to Nicole, and then we'll get started.
Sure. Good morning, everybody. Good morning, Nicole. I'd hoped to meet you before, but consider this a handshake from me. I'm happy to be on the panel with you. So what qualifies me for this session? Well, that's a really good question. You know what, I'm educated. My education background is in parks and recreation administration and community development. I come from a background of community development, having worked 34 years for a municipality, the municipality of Foam Lake, actually, which is where I am, and I'm joining you from Treaty 4 territory. I also bring 20 years of retail business experience, where my husband and I were owners of a commercial greenhouse and nursery operation. After leaving my work with the town, I started a consulting business, and I work predominantly with rural area nonprofit organizations, in organizational development and planning, and trying to get people, I guess, on the planning mode. I always joke, that's my soapbox, is planning and the importance of it. With another hat on, I've been on the municipal council for 5 years, and as a councillor, and most recently, I'm in my first term as mayor of the town of Foam Lake. So having said all that, I may not be the most qualified expert in the world of economic development, but to coin a phrase that some colleagues of mine use, they say I've been around the block enough times that I know some stuff. And so want to share stories and share some stuff with you, and just tell some stories about some experiences and where we're at in the community. So I'm really happy to be here, and hopefully we have some good dialogue back and forth. And I love this format, the casualness of just, let's just talk. So I'm really happy to be here.
Good to have you, Shelley.
Yeah.
So Nicole, we'll turn it over to you.
All right. Well, it's great to meet you, Shelley, as well. I apologize for being late. I was having some technical difficulty, but so I've been in the municipal administration field for 33 years, 11 of that in rural, and the other 22 in the town of Rosthern. So I've, in all those positions, I dealt with economic development as well as being the administrator. I have some education in economic development, but like Shelley, a lot of it is just, hands-on, been around the block kind of thing. So looking forward to this session as well and having a good conversation.
Welcome. I think we're going to let Jessica's going to be our moderator today. So she's going to lead us with the questions. And as we go through, if you have questions and that, where it's open, we want to hear everybody's chatting back and forth. So Jessica, I'll let you lead us away.
Absolutely. So just to play on what Jenny said, we have 5 questions that we are going to be asking the 2 panelists today. But after each question, we're going to give you an opportunity to also share your insight, or if you have any comments or feedback that you want to share, we welcome that after each question. Just like we mentioned, it would be really great to have some open dialogue and conversation as we kind of move through this session today. So I'm just going to pose this question first to Shelley. What challenges or obstacles has your town faced in terms of economic development, and how have you worked to overcome them?
Yeah, this is probably the longest answer to the questions that because there are numerous challenges or roadblocks, if you will, in our community, and I think I start with a lack of basic understanding of what economic development actually means. Is a really an interesting starting point in our communities, because there are so many different answers and viewpoints. And to try and coordinate those views to have an effort, a deliberate effort to move forward is a definite challenge. I mean, from business attraction to business retention to jobs to just general well-being, housing, all those sorts of things. It's, I guess, defining is a real challenge, what economic development really means in your community. And I think this also leads to a lack of planning and a vision from your community. And we were talking ahead of the session that often we have our visions up here, but do we formalize them? And when we sit down at the table, do we actually coordinate those visions so that we can move forward as a team and not a bunch of individuals with visions? So I think that's a couple issues. And I think our solutions, we need to get the stakeholders, I guess, viewing what economic development really is for our community, and an all-encompassing point of view. And when I say that, I want to be careful, because I don't mean we always have to agree on everything. I had a former mayor tell us it would be a boring world if we always agreed on everything, and I agree with him. But the fact is that as we move forward from a community perspective, we need to find some common ground. So I think we need to start with establishing an economic vision and a plan as the solution to that, and getting the stakeholders to the table. I think that starts from a municipal perspective with engaging your citizens as a solution to this, which I know we've done that with surveys and that type of thing that led to strategic planning from our municipality, where our municipality actually then identified values and strategic priorities to move forward. And once you put those strategies on paper, it's amazing how they have a way of coming true, from open, clear communications. And these are some of our actual values and priorities, to encouraging change and innovation, overall community well-being, plus the actual establishment of an economic development strategy. So, and part of that strategy, we no doubt will envision, I think, some dedicated dollars to specific HR for economic development and a team. So I think those are a couple of the main challenges that we face in our community, is understanding and lack of vision and plan.
Jessica, would you like me to jump right in here?
Yeah, I think that would be great, Nicole.
Okay, so it's I hear what you're saying, Shelley, and I feel like in our community we also have a number of challenges, but in my opinion, they relate more to infrastructure. One being that we have a shortage of commercial buildings and commercial property. And any commercial buildings that are for sale are quite old and not to code, so that poses a problem. To help overcome that, the town has done a couple things actually. In the downtown core, the council decided to purchase, one of those old buildings that didn't really have any useful life left, and they demolished it. So now there's an empty lot there for someone, but unfortunately, a lot of the inquiries we've had for commercial in the downtown, they want a building that's ready to go now. They don't want to build something on an empty lot. They want something ready to go. But that's another issue. In the highway commercial area, we ended up constructing over $2 million worth of water and sewer mains so that we could open up that area for commercial development. And we've actually sold half the lots there. So that's good. Another issue that we have is a shortage of all types of housing. That's the biggest thing for business owners looking to attract people to come and work. There's a lack of housing. And that leads into the third issue, and perhaps the biggest one, and that's relating to our water. And we have great water. It's just we don't have enough storage at this point, and so we're being restricted from larger subdivisions, and rightly so by community planning until we can get that storage capacity up. So we have been working on a major water project for a few years now. It's been a slow process, but we're finally at a point where we can start construction next year. So in the meantime, kind of working side by side on these two projects, we've been working with residential developers and planning where and what type of housing is needed. So.
I'll jump Jessica, I'll jump back in here because I think this is going to work really well with Nicole and I, because I actually have 4 more issues or challenges and it'll provide an interesting I think perspective of where you have communities at different stages of economic development. Because some of the things that Nicole has just said are already probably next step from where our community is. And so I'm just going to mention some of the other challenges that we have, and moving into lack of a prepared community asset listing and resources, and being information ready for developers that are coming to our table, not knowing what we have. We know what we have, but we don't. If that makes sense, we don't have it in a package. And trust me, we came probably very close to losing some potential development because we weren't able to answer water and sewer capacity questions in a very timely manner. We did somewhat not stumble our way through it, but managed to answer the questions, and still the project is still on the books. However, when developers are coming, having those assets and your infrastructure information at a point of ready to answer their questions is so important, because not all developers will wait around while you get your act together. And I think that's a challenge, and I think we need to be prepared with our package of what we have. And how do we do that? That's through education and, not only learning what it is that we have to have ready. And we just actually went through a community evaluation plan with an outside consulting company, and where they took us through economic development readiness series of questions. And it was really interesting. The questions ranged from general economic development administration, community profiles, industrial and land inventories, investment attraction, dealing with site selectors for potential development, and processes. How do we deal with people? What's our procedure? And out of 194 questions, when our council sat down, we failed dismally And we actually expected to. We aren't a terrible community, but we have information, but we don't have it at a point of readiness. So we were 70% non-compliant. 18% we were doing okay, and 11% we were kind of we needed work in. So now the work begins to address those areas of not being ready and pulling that information together. And a lot of it's just simple, having inventories, but it takes time. And that's a huge challenge. And part of why we maybe aren't ready leads to another challenge, and that's human resources. Our community development officer is also our CAO. And we've been through a couple different CAOs in the last couple years. And so there's some issues where lack of historical knowledge, lack of local contacts, needing to get up to speed with our official community plan and zoning bylaws and that type of thing. But probably one of the biggest issues, and I've seen this in other communities as well, is a CAO job is huge. That there are so many wheels to that bus that a CAO is driving. And often the squeaky wheels get the grease. And sometimes economic development has to get set aside because of, the issues of the day about municipal infrastructure or budgets or HR management are taking over. So that is an issue. And part of what we're doing to do that is dedicated training, through organizations like Community Futures, the Economic Development Alliance, making sure our community development officer is trained in those areas, and also working towards when we ultimately get an economic development strategy, we do foresee hopefully a dedicated development officer in some form that can maybe dedicate more specific time to that role, because it is tough in small communities. I think the other thing that we see is attitudes is a huge challenge. Attitudes of protectionist attitudes still exist in our community. And I'll just give you a quick example where we had a development opportunity looking for purchasing some lots for a retail business to be built. And some of the comments around an unofficial table, not a council table, but were, oh, great, just what we need, another one of these businesses. And I immediately stopped and said, wow, that is not an attitude. I am never going to begrudge someone wanting to set up business in our community. So that protectionist or thing that, oh, we've already got enough of that. And we've heard that before. That's an issue of being non-inclusive and non-progressive. Those attitudes exist. We kind of like it just the way we are. It was interesting in a community survey, the number of people that thought our community was just fine. They weren't interested in growth. That's an interesting answer. So not everyone is interested in community growth, but we have to deal with that too. When I say non-inclusive, I also mean that there are issues of people that don't want to see new people in your community. There are potential and racism issues that still do exist in our communities. Our community is great, but we don't hide our heads in the sand that we still don't have issues of racism and non-inclusivity. And those can inhibit economic growth and just the growth of your community. And so I think some of the things that we do as a community, we've looked at actually putting policies on paper, which we have done. We adopted a good neighbor policy just pre-COVID that talks about what type of community we want to be like. How do we want to be inclusive? We embrace diversity. We embrace truth and reconciliation, and those types of things, as well as education and seeking stories of success. That's what we're doing here today, is telling stories. And I really believe that that's how you battle people that maybe have negative attitudes towards growth and development, is you tell stories of success and listen to other people and build those relationships and look for what you have in common. That's sometimes helps to negate negativity in your community. Just quickly, I'm just about at the end of our challenges, but the last one is lack of a business voice. We lost our Chamber of Commerce a number of years ago due to various reasons. I won't go into why, but we have not had a voice for business for a number of years, and I think that's really important in our communities. And so our council has tried to, through business networking events, tried to facilitate and advocate for business. We can't start a business organization as a council, but we can support one should the business people feel the appetite to do so. And I think it's really important because as a council, we need to be able to go have a point person to go to talk about business issues or economic issues in the community. We're finding it really cumbersome we're talking to people all over the place, whereas a business association or a chamber of commerce, whatever you want to call them, would be very conducive. And so we're working hard to try and support local business people to get that back up and running, so that they can be an integrated part of our economic development strategy. So those are some of the challenges that we face. And I think they're probably precursor challenges to some of the things that Nicole is facing right now. But
that's
yeah.
great. Thank you, Shelley. I'm just wondering, does anyone else have any challenges or obstacles within their communities that they want to share? Okay, then we're just going to move on to question number 2. Nicole, can you tell me what the key industries or sectors that currently drive economic development in Rosthern?
The key sectors here are agriculture and health. We have 2 bigger industries related to agriculture, which are Brant Equipment and Horizon Pet Food. And then besides the hospital and medical clinic, we have, over a dozen health-related businesses in town. And then there's also several facilities geared towards seniors and, group homes, a day center for people requiring extra care. And then the recent highway commercial development, there's been 3 recent new businesses there, 4 actually, and that's provided a lot of employment in town as well. Our downtown core, is bright and it's always booming. And we have 30 home-based businesses that are up and running as well. So all in all, we have over 100 businesses in Rosthern. And I just, I wanted to mention, Shelley brought up the Chamber of Commerce, and, for 20 years, I was jealous of those communities that had access to a chamber, because we, as the town, had tried facilitating that for 20 years. And then it took, some new business owners and a champion to step in and start it. And man, that thing it's incredible. And the chamber here is not just Rosthern. They've decided that it's more of a regional type chamber. So it's people, our businesses outside the community as well. So all that helps, working together with neighboring communities and businesses.
That's great. And for you, Shelley, yeah.
That's really cool, Nicole, that you say, it gives me hope because we have struggled. And I just want to take people and say, come on, form this organization. But you're right, finding that champion. And I think that that is huge in anything, whether it's your economic development team or your business team or even your municipal team. You need to have those local champions and people that share the passion. And I know our local business association, our chamber of the day, had evolved to the point, like they were probably 70 plus years old, where their main areas of concern were more about running parades and hamburger sales than business development and economic development. And so it's just the way things evolved. But so I'm really happy to hear that, because it gives me hope and in our community. I'm also really happy to hear you say home-based businesses, for the simple reason we have over 40 home-based businesses, and I think that's a sector that drives our economy that is not seen simply by virtue of the fact they don't have a storefront. So I think that's so important. From our perspective, in addition to that, I think the key economic drivers in Foam Lake are obviously, number one is agriculture, and I think that's still going to hold true in much of our province. Obviously the mainstream farming practices, but also the support services that go with that sector. The inland terminals, we're in an area here where we actually have within about 40 kilometers, I believe 40 or 70 kilometers, about 5 or 6 inland terminals. I mean, that drives economy here, and you can see we have a huge mid-prairie truck repair business that grew here simply because we were centrally located, because there is semi-farm traffic like you wouldn't believe in this area. So I mean, you can see your economy grow because of some of those things in agriculture, besides whoops, I'm sorry.
Yeah, that's probably Jenny. I think she drives a black truck and she's usually drunk, so.
Sorry, we had somebody, their mic was on.
Oh, okay. But, so you've got the Viteras, the Nutrients, the Richardson Pioneers, and that type of thing that are big players in our community. We also have manufacturing. We're fortunate to have 2 manufacturers that probably employ in the neighborhood together 60 to 70 payrolls. We have a window manufacturer, North Home Comfort Windows, is based out of our community, that are provincial wide, and actually through Western Canada even manufacture windows. And we have a canola crushing plant here, Milligan Biofuels, that really, they bring a lot of traffic to our community and employ a lot of people. One of the third drivers, aside from all the support, Nicole had mentioned health and your retail businesses. We are a fairly major tourism destination area, is a major economic driver in our community. We're in the Quill Lakes International Bird Area, which is a world renowned and actually dedicated area for migratory birds. And it brings huge numbers of people here from a tourist perspective. We're also on the border of 2 major watersheds in our province, the Quill Lakes watershed and to the west, and the Assiniboine watershed to the east. So trust me, when we incur flooding, there's a reason why we flood, because we're in the middle of 2 pretty big watersheds. But these watersheds provide a multitude of lakes, parks, recreational opportunities. And so we have a large number of tourism visitors to the area, which drives a lot into our economy. So those are some of the 3 major things that contribute to our community.
That's great. Thank you. Just a side note, I know in terms of the Chamber of Commerce, if there was a way to find, funding to help pay the support staff to run these chambers of commerce. I know with the Town of Rosthern, it would be so great to be able to offer a salary, even a small salary, because, it's a lot of work for people to take on as the champion. And, if there was an opportunity for communities to have that as a paid position, it would only enhance the growth and the development of those organizations. So just a thought. I know you're an expert, Shelley, at grants and finding them. And I know that that definitely is an issue.
And it's interesting. I was at a meeting of 2 of our neighbors last night, Foam Lake, Wynyard, and Wadena, councils and staff had a meeting, and we talked about, sharing and cooperation and that type of thing. And one thing you said, Nicole, that your chamber has gone beyond just the urban municipality and included other municipalities or rural areas as well. And one thing we talked about was tri-sector. There's funding available for initiatives, regional development initiatives. And there's a thought that if our municipalities kind of connected the dots with some of our business communities, we could maybe at least look at getting some funding because of regional cooperation to employ someone to maybe get built to a point where it could be sustainable, a position in the future. So I think if you put some of those ideas together, and that's the cool thing that happens when you're in a forum like this, is you hear something from Nicole, another community, and it gets you thinking, gee, we could maybe tap into that in a different way and make it work. So yeah, those are really good comments and good ideas. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Does anyone else have anything to add? Okay, so we'll just move on to question 3. Nicole, can you provide an overview of recent initiatives or projects aimed at promoting economic growth and development?
Well, like many other communities, we have tax incentives for commercial businesses. But more importantly, in my opinion, is that the town has been positioning themselves for growth by understanding what they have for infrastructure, what the capacity of that infrastructure is, what is needed for now and into the foreseeable future, and then what needs to be replaced, and a plan to do that replacement. So, this has been a long, painstaking process, but a much needed one. We've done so many studies and assessments. Like on our water, we've done a water aquifer study. We've done a Goody study to determine the quality of water and potential treatment. We've done water modeling on our distribution system. We've researched other options for water supply through, SAS Water. We've done assessments on our lagoon for capacity. We've done assessments on our sewer distribution system because we know it's old, and a plan to replace that. We've done storm drainage plans. We've worked with the Ministry of Highways to figure out so we could open up development along the highway. So of course we're located at the intersection of 2 highways, and so we worked with highways to determine how much land they would need for their future development so that we could move forward with our development. And also working with the RM and annexing land for future growth, and also working with developers. So ideally we'd really love to get out there and market the town, but we just have a few more things to complete until we can open those floodgates for growth.
That's great. Thank you, Nicole. And Shelley, what do you have to say about recent initiatives or projects?
First of all, I just love this because it gives such a great perspective of communities at different stages. And I think that's a good thing. I think those people that are joining this session can maybe see themselves in different areas from the perspective of my community and Nicole's, and I think that's good. Some of the things that initiatives have taken place years ago, and again, we had councils of the day that had tremendous foresight in developing new water supplies and RO water treatment systems about 20 years ago, and we are, as well as upgrading just recently our sewer capacities. And a lot of that came as a result of our, some of our manufacturing, that we realized we needed to do some of that if we in fact were to attract even other manufacturers and that type of thing. So, that foresight is good. But I still think our main initiatives that where our community is at is in the process of economic readiness. And trying to get all our ducks in a row, so to speak, so that we can get to the point where Nicole is at, where they're actually, starting to do some of the promotion and attraction. We need to dedicate the resources. We need to build our team, so we can develop, I guess, our community's advantage and market what we've got, and put together things like it's just pulling it together. We've got tax incentives, but we need to put it into a package. What opportunities do we have for commercial and industrial development? Business directories, our economic development plans, official zoning, our official community plans, infrastructure, inventories, and that type of thing. I think that's where those are the initiatives that are really forefront. It's the planning, that stage that we're at, that's going to hopefully show some of the success down the road. I think when you talk planning too, one thing our council has done is dedicated a committee to planning and development as a start through our strategic direction. And any municipality has to start by taking a look at your policies and your bylaws that relate to potential economic development. And that's what this committee is charged with specifically. And, I spoke with a businessman actually earlier this morning, and he said the first thing that he looks for is there anything in this community that may handcuff me from growth? That's one of the first things that he asks, as well as does the community support businesses in ways that it can grow? And so those are pretty basic questions. And taking a look at the policies of your community is one of the first things that businesses, people will look. Tax incentives are one thing, but what about your main street policies? Do you have certain standards? How your town looks? Because whether we like it or not, and I know it's this isn't an answer to one of the other questions, but your curb appeal is everything. And we know we're not supposed to make judgments on first impressions, but I'll tell you, lots of first impressions are pretty important when you've got people looking to maybe develop in your community, because how your community is presented often is a statement to how it's run. And not always, but sometimes it is. So I think those are points we're at. The other thing that we think is really important in our community is to be viewed as inclusive, and the work we're doing on truth and reconciliation. Not just because it's the right thing to do, is to reconnect with our neighbors. But the simple fact is that I think there are future partnerships that we need to reconnect. We've lived next door. Specifically, our closest Indigenous community is Fishing Lake First Nations. And we have not connected with them in years and years and years. And it's time to reconnect with our neighbors. And I think this is a challenge because it takes time. But the local chief at a meeting about a year ago had indicated that, do you realize our community injects $5 to $7 million in your retail businesses? Not all of it is in our community, but communities like Wadena, Wynyard, and Foam Lake. That's a big player. That's a big community. And as I said, not only because it is the right thing to do, to reconnect with our neighbors and enter a journey of truth and reconciliation, but it's also economically right. I think it's important, and that's good. That's an initiative that we are working on and have been working on, that we have no doubt will make a difference in the health of our community and our whole area. Champions, that's another thing, is identifying local champions of economic development, people that have passion for the community. And I think you need to have the right horses hooked to the wagon, and able to steer and lead people. And so we're at a somewhat of a different point, I guess, of readiness. And I think that's probably coming through in some of the things I'm saying with my questions. But like Forrest Gump says, that's all I have to say about that.
I do see we do have those are good comments. We do have a comment in the chat. Um, it was Chambers of Commerce. It was regarding that. I'm seeing some communities piggybacking on other successful chambers, and an example is Wetaskiwin Chamber was struggling, so Leduc Chamber sort of took them over. And then Marinthorpe just started a chamber, and they are piggybacking off of the Whitecourt success story. So that thing about going outside your community, and so that was from Elan. That was a good example.
Thanks, Jenny. Okay, now on to question number 4, Nicole. So how would you describe the local infrastructure in terms of supporting potential economic expansion? Now, you've already kind of touched on this, but maybe you could just talk a little bit more about that.
Oh, for sure. And we're very fortunate to be located where we are. So again, we're at the intersection of Highway 11 and 312, 40 minutes from Saskatoon, 45 minutes from Prince Albert on that twinned highway corridor. We have SaskTel Fiber in town, which is very important for a lot of businesses at providing fast upload and download speeds. I know Sask Power is in the process of upgrading their infrastructure in town because they see the growth happening. And the town itself, we have excellent drinking water. We have good utility services. We have, we have a new school, pre-K to 12 that was just built a few years ago, and a private high school. We have great recreation facilities and programming, an active business community, and the recent announcement of the planning of a new hospital is really going to help as well. So we have a lot of good things happening as far as that infrastructure to help growth.
Thanks, Nicole. And what about you, Shelley?
Yeah, absolutely. You know what? I could say, well, I can't say ditto to Nicole, all of Nicole's answers, but I think very similar in we feel we're in an advantageous position. We're on a Trans-Canada Highway, number 16. We're on a main rail line. We're, relatively close to Yorkton is our next largest trade center. Within a couple hours to Regina and that type of thing. But I think strategically placed again for agriculture with just the number of ag-related grain inland terminals. It just brings huge amounts of people to this area from the farm network. And again, we are just in the process. SaskTel is, we're just getting the fiber optics installed actually in these next 3 to 4 months. And so that's going to bode well for communications because we're never fast enough. And I said to you guys, I've got 6 different devices here because I'm experiencing technical difficulties and I'm ready to pick something else up if needed. But so I think we're in pretty good shape. The councils of the day in our community have always been on very good preventative maintenance programs and replacement programs. They've done very well at asset management, and that's something that we're getting better at all the time as a municipality to make sure our infrastructure and amenities support potential business growth. And I guess I can't, again, overemphasize curb appeal. And it seems frivolous, but it is really, really important. When deciding, people are looking at the overall community. They aren't just looking at running a business. They're looking at, the curb appeal, the infrastructure that you have, our open parks spaces, our recreational facilities, what opportunities are there, education, health. Some of those are out of our control, but we try and mitigate the things that are out of our control and turn them into advantages where we can. The last thing that I'll mention as I think a main attraction or to our community, and that's our nonprofit sector. It's often overlooked. We have for a community of our size of, I don't know, maybe we're grossly overorganized, but we have over 50 local nonprofit organizations. that provide services for our residents. And that's not only an economic driver, but it is a huge support. It's a huge support to the social aspect of our community and the business aspect. And from an attraction point of view, the services that they deliver and maintain really make it an attractive place to come. So that's the last point that I'll mention on that question.
So,
Thank you.
can I just interject
No.
here?
Yeah.
Regarding the curb appeal, I totally agree. And, and I don't know why I didn't mention that, because that's one thing our community is huge on is, all the trees and the green spaces, and the town looks after that. And we have numerous compliments every year from, people or other businesses from other communities regarding that. So it is very important. Another thing I forgot to mention too was, we talk about, and maybe this is just because I come from the town, we talk a lot about infrastructure, but, talking about those soft services of, recreation, we have the arts here too. And I know, there's some people that would say, well, why are our tax dollars going towards that? But you need those soft services. You have to find that balance, and money has to be allocated to all types of services, not just those hard infrastructure services. So
you're right, Nicole. Ask yourself the question when you first drive into a community, is the first thing you say, those are the nicest storm sewer grates I've ever seen?
well, I do, but
Actually, I'm kind of a geek that way too. I'll drive into a town and say, oh, they don't have storm sewers. They must, oh, they've got ditches. And I'll notice stuff like that because I'm a bit of an infrastructure geek. But most people, no, but they'll notice your tree canopies, your parks. They'll notice some of those that are regarded as soft services. And, I actually, the term soft services, I get where it's coming from. But the fact is you start taking some of those soft services away and you'll soon find out they aren't soft at all. They're hard and fast, and people will be on your doorstep and saying, we demand these things. And so that's absolutely right, Nicole. Your community and those soft services, that's what makes our lives in our community. I mean, economy is important, but it's all about the well-being and the quality of life. And some of those softer services is what really makes us want to be where we are.
yeah,
So
it's all intertwined, that's for sure.
Yeah.
No, that's great. Thank you. Nicole, are there any upcoming projects or initiatives that you believe will significantly enhance your town's economic development readiness?
Yeah, I think I touched a bit on this, but we have a $20 million water project that we've, it seems like we're just starting it, but really on the back end, we've been working on it for years. But people will think we just started this year because, when they see that actual movement happening, that's when it starts for them. But we've been working on it for a while. And, when I mentioned earlier as well, we're working with residential developers, and because we really do have a shortage of housing here, and that, Jess, you live here, but so hopefully, in the next couple of years, we'll be set up for some real growth.
That's great. And Shelley, what about your community?
Yeah, I think I'll go back to, and I'm going to echo some of the things that Nicole said, but I'll go back to planning and willingness to learn and building relationships. I think we also are very, very open to regional partnerships and trying not to be territorial. We're looking to, I think, some of the things immediately on our plate, we're looking to utilize partners that will complement our work, partners like Community Futures, partners like other municipalities. Like I've already made a note here that we need to have some people sit down at lunch with Nicole and some of her team and just share some stories one-on-one about where they're at and to help provide us with further vision. We need to do things like that. We need to get at the Saskatchewan Economic Development Alliance table. We need to get at the table with private developers, private consulting firms, First Nations, neighboring municipalities, even though Rosthern maybe isn't our neighbor. Hey, it's close enough, and there's a lot of good things going on. But a couple things specifically in addition to that are on our horizon is our local area First Nations are embarking on the development of a I think it's a 30 or $40 million communiplex and convention center gathering place. This is huge in our area. We're about 20 minutes from their community. And I think we need to be ready and to provide potential support services that'll be required when that facility becomes a reality. And I have no doubt it will become a reality. Their goals are within a couple of years. I'm not sure those timelines are achievable, but I think that is something that is on the horizon that's pretty huge in the economy in this area. I think housing is something as well. 2 levels of housing, non-subsidized housing, retirement housing is becoming top of mind for people that aren't wanting to leave the community, but have the means and are looking for condos or townhouses or apartment type complexes. So again, and I know just earlier this week, I spoke with a fellow mayor about development in their community and where you start the ball rolling on that. Plus identifying some potential lands that we may in fact have available. That's huge right now. The other aspect to that is subsidized public housing. And we talked before the session started a bit about Sask housing units. And we're in a bit of a state of infrastructure deficit with some of our units. And yet we have a waiting list of demand for people that need subsidized public housing. You know, I really didn't think when I came on the local town council that housing would really be an issue on our table. It's a huge issue. And, you know, as I said, I know how Charlie Clark and Sandra Masters in Saskatoon and Regina feel. They're, you know, housing. And it was interesting. We actually had a person in a tent in our community. And, you know, we had said that we may start seeing people that do not have housing or that are homeless. We are starting to see that in the rural areas. So housing, is it an issue? I echo Nicole's statement. Yes, it is. And I think, so that's something that, and that's a huge economic driver. If we can't keep people and house people and attract people. So it's something that's top of the agenda, for sure.
Yeah, I agree 100%. Thank you, ladies, both very much for your insightful answers to these questions. I think it's very helpful. That being said, does anyone have any other questions or comments or initiatives, or even want to just plug the town that they live in and where they're from and kind of what's happening right now? By all means, please, this would be a time to share that.
And I'm sure the ladies would answer any questions if anybody has any. They're a wealth of knowledge.
Well, I don't know about that.
Jenny,
Nicole,
what about you?
I'm not speaking for you, just me.
Yes. Well, in Bruno, my husband is the mayor in the community, so I hear a lot of the same struggles, you know, but we're very lucky in our community. We've had a lot of young families move back. So it's a lot, we hear a lot around those soft services, you know, having the rink ready, because you know, we went from having no local hockey teams to now having 36 kids in the under 7 age group. And how do you handle that? And you know, so, and that becomes, and we're a retirement community, so you hear the older ones saying, why is all the money going into the rink? So it's that struggle and trying to find a balance of keeping all of those soft services and crumbling older infrastructure. We definitely hear that all the time too. So But we're lucky. We've got young. We've got a lot of them have gotten very active in our things. Like our golf course has got a whole new group that's gung ho and they're rebuilding it. We've got a new committee taking over, at the rink, and that's nice to see when you got new people moving in. And lots of young families, lots of kids have moved back. So it's nice to we're very lucky that way. And they're gung ho. They've got lots of energy. So it's nice to see that. And I don't think we're maybe not like all communities that way. But it's a struggle for our town council too to find that balance of everything.
Another thing too is, the lack of volunteers nowadays. That I remember when I first started in this business, we relied on a lot of volunteers for a lot of municipal things, and now there's not a lot. I'll just give you an example. Even with our rec board, we don't have a rec board anymore. It's just everything is through the town. It's the town runs it. So we're lucky the rural municipality gives us some funding to help operate it, but other than that, it's a total town run facility.
Yeah. I think I'm sorry, Nicole, were you still talking?
No, I'm done.
Okay. Yeah, I think our administrative structures, you need to really take a look at that in your communities. And I mean, we've just gone through a modernization from the financial perspective, where we still have numerous committees established through bylaw to operate on our behalf and advise our recreational facilities. We still managed to modernize the financial aspect of that and bring everything streamlined through the main municipal budget. But what we did was we kept intact the advisory groups to try and keep the engagement aspect of the users in and having a more direct say. But we had to minimize the risk and liability of having volunteers make decisions on multi-million-dollar facilities. And so it's a balancing act. We have to kind of get with the new millennium to minimize risks, but yet still respect some of the traditional values that have worked for you in operations. So that's a challenge. One thing I'll mention about vision is, when somebody says something to you that's really way out there in left field, don't immediately dispel it or poo-poo it. And I'll give you an example. A mayor from about 30 years ago at a strategic planning session that our community was doing, and I was an employee of the town at the time, said, "Are we ready for retirement in this community?" And everybody looked at him and like, "Are you crazy?" And he said, "No, what I mean, are we ready with accommodations and housing? I feel we should be planning for the future because we can still become a retirement destination. And are we ready?" And nobody really took him seriously. Well, here we are 30 years later saying, gee, maybe if we had acted a bit more on that vision of this potentially is a place for retirement and people are looking that way, we might have been more ready, if that's a term. So really, when some of those, what seems out there, visions have a way of coming true eventually with work and passion. And I wish I had listened more closely, as others do, to that vision of the mayor of the day, because we didn't. But please listen. And keep it on the list. Never take everything off the list. Just keep it there as a reminder. I think the other thing is that our mainstream communities, as we know them, have to change. Our communities have changed. New citizens have changed our communities. The people that settled our communities and valued some of our arenas, curling, skating facilities, ballparks, the people in our communities no longer value those same things as the hubs of our community. And I'm not saying everybody, they're still valued services, But the fact is that we have many new citizens that are either migrant Canadians that have come from other parts of the country, or immigrants that simply do not value skating or ice activity. Some of them get involved, but they value other things. And to be honest with you, what we're seeing is utilized almost more than some of our bricks and mortar structures are our parks and open spaces.
Yeah.
So we're paying
Yep.
a lot more attention to making sure that amenities are present for nature trails and those opportunities, because people are coming from countries and large urban situations where they can't believe that we're sitting in nature, and we take it for granted. So I think that's something that it's not a trend, it's here. Parks and open spaces and outdoor unstructured activities are actually something that it's not just a trend or a fad. I think it's something that's here to stay. And take a look at inflation. I mean, things that maybe don't cost money, I can take my family and have a nice afternoon of recreation where I'm not charged an admission on the nature trail. Those are real aspects in our communities right now. So those are just some other things, and there's so many things that enter into this whole thing. But yeah, we could talk all day, I'm sure.
We could.
Sure
We could. Yeah.
Good. Does anybody have any questions or comments?
Yes, Ashley.
Oh, yes, go ahead.
So I found this by accident. I'm actually located in Northwestern Ontario, so it's 5 after 1. But like, I'm the community development officer for a township of fewer than 900 people, and it's incredible to hear how what you're experiencing there is exactly what we're going through here. All of these challenges and experiences are across the board when it comes to housing and infrastructure and trying to attract new industry or development. For us, we were a forestry industry based community. We were built by the mills, the pulp and paper mills, and then they went down in 2006, and we made that shift to tourism. And now, after many years, our former mill site is 364 acres, and they're looking at redevelopment. So it's, how does a community become ready for a potential new industry? And just like, I've got 3 pages double-sided of notes from this, so this is absolutely fantastic. But your local champions, you're planning for the future, your change in demographics, going from that retirement community to trying to attract young families is, it resonates a lot with everything that we're going through here. And I've definitely taken some pearls of wisdom to help make the case for beautification efforts and maintaining our curb appeal and those additional services that developers want to see in a community to come in. I'm really interested in that 186, 189 question survey that your community did, because I think it's something that every community should be doing, just to kind of see how welcoming are they to existing businesses and industry, but also are they positioned for growth, because economies change. You never know what's going to happen. So yeah, thank you.
Great
Well,
comment.
thank you for that's great. We're
Mhm.
glad you joined us today.
I just wanted to also mention that we have Shelley lined up for a variety of different sessions that I think most of you here would be quite interested in. So I will make sure that everyone gets the information and the dates, but just wanted to mention a few as they kind of popped up. But we do have one on volunteer management that's happening in January. And then we also have one about lack of cooperation, in November. Another one, inclusion in your community, in November. And then building relationships with sponsors in February. So, I mean, just a few of the ones that are coming up, I think, that are relevant to some of the things that we were talking about today. And also, we just have a comment here. There's an investment readiness toolkit from EDA that Ilan is familiar with, and she has just put the link in the chat if you wanted to just maybe, it's a PDF document, maybe you wanted to just download that file. But thank you all very much for joining in today. I think it was a really great group, and a lot of great feedback and conversations going back and forth.
Yes, just thanks everyone for joining on behalf of the Sage Hill office and the Community Futures Northwest. We hope everyone enjoyed the session. Please take a minute to fill out the evaluation at the end, because it really helps us kind of plan our next sessions and what everybody's kind of looking for. And anyway, thank you everyone, and have a great rest of your day. And we look forward to seeing you all again.
Thank you.
Thank you, folks.
Thank you.
Nicole,
Yes.
I'm